I was 10 years old at the time, young enough to believe the world was safe and stupid enough not to recognize danger when it was breathing right in front of me. It was a Friday night. I was in my room playing a Star Wars video game. Everything in the house felt normal until I heard my mother crying. Not normal crying, the kind of crying I had never heard before. I stepped out of my room, my heart already racing. My mother was on the phone. Her hands were shaking. I only caught pieces of the conversation. Something about the hospital. A call. My older brother had been hit by a car. His leg was broken. I don't remember the rest. I just remember my father hurriedly putting on his coat, trying to calm my mother while fear hung thick in the air. They woke my 5-year-old sister and then looked at me. "Can you stay home alone?" my father asked. I said yes immediately. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I didn't want to see my brother like that. Maybe my parents thought it was better if at least one child stayed away from the trauma. The front door closed. The sound of the car faded away. And suddenly, I was alone. I turned my game back on to distract myself. Hours passed. I lost track of time. Then, sometime after midnight, I heard the front door open. My heart jumped with relief. I thought my parents were back. Maybe my brother was with them. I turned off the TV, got off my bed, and slowly opened my bedroom door to listen. But there were no voices. Not my mother's. Not my father's. Minutes passed. No footsteps came up the stairs. That's when my chest began to tighten. I moved quietly to the top of the stairs, where I could see into the living room below. The lights were off, and in the darkness, 3 tall shadows were standing there. They were not my parents. I didn't think for even a second. I backed away immediately, rushed into my room, and gently closed the door. My heart was pounding so hard I was afraid they could hear it. I went straight to my closet, opened it, crawled inside, and hid behind clothes and boxes. I made myself as small as possible. I even controlled my breathing. Then, my bedroom door opened. Footsteps. Someone had entered my room. They moved slowly. I heard them stop near my bed. My blanket shifted, as if they were checking to see if someone was sleeping there. Then silence. Tears rolled down my face, but I didn't make a sound. The footsteps returned. This time they were coming toward the closet. The closet door opened. I shut my eyes, held my breath. The door stayed open for a long time. To this day, I don't know if it was 10 seconds or 30. To me, it felt like forever. I could feel someone staring at me, like they were deciding something. Then, the closet door closed. The footsteps moved away. They left the room. I stayed there, frozen. I didn't move. I don't know how much time passed before I heard my parents' voices again. This time, they were real. I screamed, burst out of the closet, and ran downstairs. The front door was half open. The house was a mess. They were burglars. Later, my parents realized that in their panic, they had forgotten to lock the door. That night, I developed a fever. I kept shaking. My parents kept telling me everything was fine, that they were just thieves, that they didn't want to hurt anyone. But even now, years later, there's one question I can't escape. When that man was standing at my closet, and the door stayed open for so long, did he see me? And if he did, why did he let me live? Tino stories ko 20 se 20. I'm 30 or being alone at home shouldn't scare me anymore. But the truth is, sometimes it still does. Our house is a foreign-style, 2-story mother-daughter house. The entire lower floor belongs to my sister, and I live upstairs. 2 separate kitchens, 2 separate living spaces. My sister is rarely home because she usually stays with her boyfriend, who lives about 20 miles away. That night, she wasn't home either. I was alone, sitting on the couch in my part of the house watching a horror movie. The upstairs area has an open layout. The living room, dining area, and kitchen are all part of one large space. The problem is that the couch sits right in the middle, and when I'm watching TV, the entire room behind me is swallowed by darkness. The movie itself wasn't even that scary, but darkness, silence, and loneliness have a way of messing with your head. I kept glancing over my shoulder, checking the space behind me. I'm sure I'm not the only 30-year-old man who does that, But at that moment, I wasn't laughing at myself. The movie ended. I brushed my teeth, turned off all the lights, and went to bed. I fell asleep quickly, but the sleep didn't last long. About 2 hours later, my eyes snapped open. I checked the clock. 1 a.m. For the first few seconds, I didn't even know why I was awake. The room was quiet. Everything felt normal. Then suddenly, I heard a voice from downstairs. It wasn't a stranger's voice. It was my sister's. She wasn't shouting from outside, asking to be let in. The voice was clear, like she was already inside the house. She was saying something, but I couldn't make out the words. My brain was still half asleep, so danger didn't register immediately. My first thought was that she had come home unexpectedly. Maybe she'd had a fight with her boyfriend and returned, calling out to me. I got out of bed. The hallway was completely dark. I turned on the light and walked through the living room toward the stairs. Then I heard the voice again. This time, I understood it clearly. She was calling my name. My heart started beating a little faster, but I forced myself to stay calm. As I went down the stairs, I called out, "What happened?" I reached the foyer downstairs and started feeling around for the light switch. But for some reason, I couldn't find it. I was extremely groggy, like my brain hadn't fully woken up yet. I stepped into my sister's small hallway and finally turned on the kitchen light. The light spread slowly, and as the kitchen brightened, my body went numb. There was no one there. Not my sister, not anyone. I checked the entire lower apartment, the living room, the kitchen, all empty. I rushed to her bedroom. It was empty too. I called her name loudly once, thinking maybe she was in the bathroom. No response. And then I heard something fall inside the bedroom, a clear, unmistakable sound, like an object hitting the floor. Every hair on my body stood up. I had just checked that room. There was nothing there, no one there. And yet I had heard the sound. I didn't have the courage to investigate further. Without looking back, I ran up the stairs, went into my room, shut the door, and locked it. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like the sound could escape the room. I grabbed my phone and called my sister. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. I sat on my bed staring at the wall, asking myself the same question over and over again. Had I imagined everything? Was it just some illusion between sleep and wakefulness? Eventually, without knowing when, I fell asleep. I woke up to my phone vibrating. A message from my sister. "Why did you call me at 1 a.m.? Last night. Is everything okay?" I replied immediately and asked if she had come home during the night. Her reply was one word. No. She had spent the entire night at her boyfriend's place. I sat there for a long time holding my phone. Then I went downstairs again. I checked her bedroom. The floor was completely clean. Nothing had fallen. I convinced myself it was all in my head. Some trick of the mind. A hallucination caught between sleep and consciousness. I told myself that sometimes people give a voice to their own fear. But it didn't end there. A few days later, I started noticing something strange. Whenever I was alone at night, I would sometimes hear faint sounds coming from downstairs, like someone walking in the kitchen, like a drawer being gently closed. Every time I told myself, it's an old house. Houses make noises. One night, jokingly, I asked my sister, "Why do you sometimes call my name at night?" She laughed, then suddenly stopped, and said, "I've never called your name at night." "Why are you asking?" I told her everything. She stayed silent for a long time. Then she spoke softly. "You know, the woman who lived in this house before us went insane after her daughter died." My stomach dropped. I asked, "Why are you telling me this now?" She said, "Because neighbors used to say she would call out to her daughter at night, over and over, always the same name." I ended the call, but my hands were shaking. That same night before going to bed, I made the mistake of going downstairs. My sister's kitchen was completely dark. I was just about to turn back when suddenly, right behind me next to my ear, a whisper. "You heard me, didn't you?" It was my sister's voice, but this time, it wasn't coming from downstairs. She was standing behind me. I was 14 years old at the time, old enough to stay home alone, but still too young to understand how danger actually shows up. My mom was working the night shift. She was an RN, and her schedule was always messed up. My brother had already left for college, so that night it was just me in the house. Since it was a weekend, I invited a girl I was talking to, Molly, over. We watched a couple of movies, talked, laughed. For a while, the house felt completely normal, but Molly's parents didn't like her staying out late, so eventually she had to leave. She had been gone for maybe 10 minutes, and then I was alone. I was lying on my bed watching TV. My bedroom was upstairs, and my window faced directly toward the backyard and the deck. The deck was wooden, and any movement out there, especially the chairs, could be heard clearly inside my room. That's when I heard it, the sound of a chair being dragged. It was so clear that I sat straight up in bed. I got up and walked to the window. When I looked down, I saw someone sitting in one of the deck chairs. My first thought was that Molly had come back. I leaned out the window and called her name. The person slowly looked up at me. It wasn't Molly. I couldn't fully see his face in the darkness, but I could tell immediately. He was a stranger. My heart slammed into my chest. I pulled back from the window like something had yanked me away. I tried to calm myself down. Maybe he was just passing through. Maybe he'd leave in a minute. A few moments passed. I worked up the courage to look again. He was still there, still sitting in the chair, still staring directly at my window. I knew he knew I was there. There was this strange fight happening inside me, fear versus curiosity. Finally, I forced myself to speak. "What do you want?" What happened next is something I've never forgotten. His shoulders started moving up and down, like he was laughing. But there was no actual laughter. Instead, I heard this strange sound, almost like whistling, wheezing breaths, like someone laughing so hard they couldn't breathe. My throat went dry. I said, "Please, just go away." Then I stepped away from the window. I turned off the TV. I turned off the lights. I sat on my bed with my knees pulled up to my chest. I didn't even turn my phone screen on. I was terrified the light would tell him I was still there. My window was slightly open. I was afraid that if I moved even a little, he'd hear me. I sat completely still. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. My mind told me he has to be gone by now. Slowly, I stood up and went back to the window. I looked down. He was still there, still staring up. Something inside me broke. This time, instead of running away, I tried to be brave. I said, "What do you want from me?" He started laughing again. That same silent, wheezing laugh. I said, "Please, just leave." I stepped away and sat back on my bed. A few moments later, I heard the sound of a door being shoved. It was the back door. He was trying to get inside. My entire body started shaking. I got off my bed, left my room, and sat at the top of the stairs, listening in the dark. Then I heard it again, this time at the front door. He was trying both entrances. I was 14 years old, skinny, weak, not someone who could fight back. If those doors hadn't been locked, I wouldn't be telling this story. Eventually, the noises stopped. I didn't leave my room for the rest of the night. Around 9 in the morning, my mom came home. I told her everything. She got angry. "Why didn't you call the police?" And she was right. Looking back now, I know that wasn't a prank. That wasn't just some drunk guy messing around. He was waiting. And if those doors hadn't been locked, I probably would have ended up as one of those stories people only hear about in true crime documentaries.